Um, Super happy to be with you. I'm Jessica Henry Gray, and I'm excited to be back with this week with a really cool idea for a video. I think that these are important things to discuss. So while I wait for a few more people to come on, I'm going to talk about just some updates and items of interest that might interest you. Good to see you. Let's see. I want to let you know that check out the links below when this video is uploaded. The workshops that I have coming up are starting to fill, and I'm excited about that. So I have workshops in Destin, Florida, painting the beach and palm trees. And then I also have, I'll be in Ireland this summer for most of June. I will be in France, which that workshop is pretty much full. We're at a waiting list. And then I have, hi Phil, good to see you. Then I have, for the last one of the year, Cannon Beach, Oregon. And there's beautiful cliffs and gorgeous water. So all of them are starting to fill, and I hope that you can check them out. Links below. And it's not too late to order your Valentine's, our past, present, future bracelet. Not this one I'm wearing too, but the ones that I make right here in America. And yeah, they're pearls, cultured pearls, silver, $27.50, so super good price. Hi guys, good to see you. I'm not going to spend a lot of time yakking today, so I'm going to just jump right in. What I want to talk to you today about is something that is extremely important, no matter what your discipline for oil painting. I'm going to talk about values. So I have this beautiful photograph that I'm using with permission. I did not take this picture. Anyway, so there's these gorgeous swans and this lovely atmospheric scene. And I thought it'd be really neat to use an atmospheric, foggy scene to talk to you today about painting atmosphere and values. We've been talking a lot lately about edges. If you're following along in these live videos, I try to go live every Friday if I can. And so I've been talking about edges, and this one is a really great one for that as well. We have super soft, fuzzy trees in the background, and then the edges on my swans up close are sharper and crisper, yet there's still some that are soft and lost. So I'm going to play with some of that. So I'm going to get going on this and talk about it more as I go along. What I have done already to the canvas, and there's sort of a warm light in my studio, and I tried to get rid of that, but I don't know. Anyway, it's cooler than it looks. It's more like that in real life. But anyway, it shows up kind of more ochre colored in here. I took some alizarin crimson, or alizarin permanent, ultramarine blue, and a little bit of burnt sienna, and I rubbed it over the canvas with some thinner, and then I wiped it off. And I wiped it pretty hard so that there's none of that on the surface. And then I did it about an hour and a half ago, and it's kind of dry to the touch. I could take and rub out some of that if I wanted to, which is how I got these effects. So I toned the whole canvas, wiped it all off, and then I took a little bit darker pigment, and I just mapped out where I wanted the tree shapes. And all the time I'm thinking about the actual shape, less about the photo and more about creating an interesting painting. And painting tree formations are just fascinating to get, not just the shape, but also the cutouts from in and around the trunks. It really gives them a sense of a distant forest. And there isn't anything on the other side, so I wanted that on the other side, a little bit of foliage. And then I wanted sort of an escape, so they can kind of give us the sense of they can swim back through that way. All right, so then I sort of mapped out where I wanted them located on the canvas. Size and placement is always a major issue with whatever it is you're dealing with. You can make them too big or too small or too close to the edge, which creates too much tension. I wanted them to have the sense that they're swimming into the picture, but I still wanted it vertical. So then their size became an issue. How big do I want them? And I kind of like this size. I toyed around with that a little bit. I don't want to fight with all those little pesky details while I'm doing these live videos, because I do want to keep them a little bit shorter. So that being said, I laid them in and I measured and I got the drawing in place. And I started putting in some key accents for the lightest lights and the darkest darks. Whenever you're painting, whether it's plein air or you're doing a portrait or a still life in the studio, or you're painting a landscape from a photo, always establish your extremes. And I got this really cool little helper I ordered the Palette Garage, palettegarage.com, and with that, they give you, oh, here's that. I think it's probably reversed. But you put it on your palette when you're out plein air painting. I had a pill sorter, which I decided I'm just going to order that because I like the design. Anyway, long story. So anyway, they come with these really cool things that you can use in your plein air equipment, and I laminated mine. But I like that it has this value scale on it. So I just pin it up to my easel when I'm working here in the studio. And you can make these, you can get them offline, whatever. It's, you know, you don't have to order a thing. But the reason you want this is because you need your extremes in your visual place. So I wanted to have with me my darkest dark black, like flat black, and my most extreme white. And you can do that. I've known people who laid down a piece of fabric on this side of the canvas and a black on this side, white on this side. You can do that. I find this to be helpful. And the reason you want to know your extremes is because what can happen, whether you're out plein air painting or you're in the studio, is you can get your darks way too dark and your lights way too light. And to have sort of the spectrum laid out, you know, you can say, okay, here's my middle tone range right in here, dark and light. Now you don't want everything on your canvas 30% this, 30% this, 30% this. You want to have them in different ratios to make it a little bit more artistic. Some people try to get all of the spectrum in their painting, and that's okay to do that too. I know Ansel Adams, the photographer, always did that with his photographs, and they were absolutely beautiful. So if that's your objective, go for it. But they're important to have that range. Sometimes some paintings are considered high key, where they're all in this lighter or low key, where they're all in this range. But there's always some sort of, if you're doing a low key where everything's dark, you have to have a light in there, like a night light, you know, a street lamp in a night scene of a cityscape, or the moon or whatever. Same with the high key. This painting is very high key, but I still have to have some of those dark accents to make it hold. If I didn't paint their beaks, my most extreme dark, it would just be kind of mushy and soft and lost. So I'm painting them dark, and but I'm still thinking and cognizant of this, how they step back, the values step back and then recede. Okay, so yakety yakety. All right, time to paint. So I'm keeping this handy, and I'll just, set it right there. So I am going to just pull that down a little bit. There's not going to be a lot to see on my palette today because really I'm just working in, you know, some sort of gray range between, I've got my titanium white, I'm going to be using my ultramarine blue and my burnt sienna. I have a little bit of alizarin crimson over here. I might mix in some yellow ochre. I don't know how far I'm going to get in today's video if I get to the beaks or whatever, but anyway, so what I want to do now is to begin sort of on the background and work my way forward. So the first step, of course, that I did was tone the canvas and block in the general area where I'm going to go. The next thing I did was work out the drawing and placement. Now, I'm at that stage where I want to really push the values and get those accurate. Okay, so I have a little bit of linseed oil over here off to the side of my palette, and I'm going to work on sort of this area in here. So I'm taking, I'll hold this up while I'm doing something. So I have some Galkid gel here as well. So some of that with some of the linseed oil. It's fine. Let's grab some ultramarine blue, some burnt sienna, and those are the colors that I use to just get a nice earthy gray. All right. Oh, and I just wanted to tell you a couple of notes. 2 weeks ago, I did a video talking about using cool and warm in your plein air, and I accidentally deleted it. So if you commented, I'm not ignoring you. I did not get those comments, and I do apologize. It was just terrible. Anyway, so, and another thing, I don't get to see your comments during the video because my back is turned. So maybe wait until the video is uploaded if you have a specific question, because otherwise I can't see them. And I do want to help as much as possible. Okay, a little bit of alizarin. I'm noticing that it was just a little too pasty blue, and I think that little bit of violet helps with getting the color and the value accurate for that sky. And I always just put a little mark down and see where I am. Okay, so let me just set this down. All the time looking to, here, I'll move this up a little bit, looking to see where I am in relation to everything else. And sometimes you might mix up a nice, wonderful puddle of color, but you may not use very much of it. So be prepared to go back to your palette with great frequency. That's okay, and you should do that. One of the reasons I don't mix with a palette knife is because you end up painting it kind of like poster paint, and it just goes too far, and there's not enough change and variation in it. Okay, so while I have that color, I see it elsewhere. I'm going to put it down. I might as well. I've got it here. And this beautiful reflection in the water of these trees is so peaceful. I mean, talk about a relaxing painting. I think that painting should relax you, no matter what you're painting. Even if you're painting a scene of a carnival, circus, whatever, in your heart, if you can find that place of peacefulness, that's what it's all about. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you can find that peace in doing what you love. I knit in the evenings, and I just really enjoy that. It gives my brain that something else to think about. So I'm taking a little bit lighter here into this as I work my way across the sky, but it's so hazy. I still want to keep that gray-green, or that gray, there's no green, that grayish color. So I'm taking a little bit more blue and brown on my palette. You don't really see it, but because there's that grayness, it just makes it overall feel kind of like a heavy, foggy day, and I love that. Just keeping it really thin in the background here too. I don't have thinner. I'm using a little bit of the Gal Kid gel and some of the odorless mineral spirits. No, not the odor, the linseed oil. Clearly my brain is in the painting mode. But you can see some subtle changes. And I will share this on YouTube, on the community of my channel where I can make posts. If you get an opportunity to see those posts, I am going to put the finished work up there. And after today's video, because I'm not going to do the entire thing on live, but I will work on finishing the painting, and then I'll share the finished painting on YouTube, as well as Facebook. If you're one of my Facebook people and you're here joining us on YouTube today, I will share this there as well. So, and I'm keeping my brush strokes a little bit of this way and that way. Just gives it a little bit of vitality and energy, even though it's quiet. I can always come back through and soften those strokes, which I probably will, because I don't want to draw the eye back there. Remember, the eye is always drawn to the area of the greatest contrast. So if you have a lot of sharp lines and value differences back there, we're going to look at it. And I want the background here just to quietly support the foreground. And in fact, that needs to be grayer here too. Not blue. The blue is killing it. It's actually taking away from the foggy feeling. So I can add some alizarin into that. And a little bit of burnt sienna. Too dark. I love that about oil painting. There's no mistake you can't fix. It's very forgiving. And if you feel like you went too far and there's just no hope, there is more canvas. They make more canvas. So just take it as a valuable learning experience, and just get some more canvas. I save those too. I save those early paintings to remind me of what worked and what didn't work. And sometimes what you think of your paintings way back in the beginning, then you look at years later, you're like, oh gosh. And that's kind of fun too, to see how you've grown. They're all stepping stones. Oops, too much sienna. So you can see on my palette, I keep sort of a spectrum going at all times. I've got my darks over here, kind of some warms, I might do cools, and then I move over to my lightest area over here. And that's one way to keep your values organized on your palette. Just sort of have a system going. If it helps you to do dark to light and then cool to warm on your palette, you can do that. I'm gonna come up here and get rid of some of that rosy purple. I didn't want so much of that up there. All right, so clean dry brush. I am going to come back through and soften this. Oh, I feel so Bob Ross. There we go. Yes, I know who he is. No, I don't care. All right. Okay, so now what's bothering me right now is the value of these trees is too dark. So I'm going to lighten those a little bit. So mixing up that value, ultramarine blue, burnt sienna. Let's get some more of that. A little bit of the alizarin permanent in there. Now, when I'm out doing plein air studies or even in the studio, I will take and I'll go, is that right or wrong? And I'll make a mark. Maybe it's better over there. But I'll always allow yourself the place to say, is that okay? How's that? You know, don't just assume that what you have mixed up here is spot on accurate. It may or may not be. So give yourself that wiggle room. So now I'm just squinting down at this mass of trees. And when I laid these in, I took a Q-tip to wipe out. It just dipped in a little bit of thinner and dried off. And I wiped out some of these little windows in the trees. So again, I'm going to sort of pull back the shape that I had. And I liked the shape and the soft edges. So I'm going to sort of take my brush and just blend it into the sky and let it just slip back like a ghost into shadows way back there. Just nothing really hard to see. And then as these get further and further away, I'll add more and more white, or of that color, which I still have on my palette. And I might as well do it over here and keep all of those values really close together, because that's just going to give it such an elusive quality if you're working on something like this. And now, don't feel bad if it takes you a while to figure out values. I kept hearing the word in all of my beginning years. So what exactly do you mean by values? And then I was too embarrassed to ask, you know, but the longer you keep working at it, the more you start to understand, and the more it starts to make sense. Now, if I didn't understand values and their importance, I might end up making some things too dark because they look that way in nature or they look that way in the photo. But to understand how to create that illusion of depth, you have to purposely sometimes change your value pattern, your value arrangement, to encourage that feeling of depth. So that's something to take into account whenever you're working on things and working from photos. So I'm moving out of the way here a little bit so I can kind of see what I'm doing. Pulling these down. Slight shift in that being a little bit heavier over here. I hope that you're not seeing too much of a glare. Getting a little bit more paint, a little more alizarin. Now I get asked quite a bit, yes, these paintings that I do for demos are for sale, but the short demos they're in my, well, they're all on my website, but some of these that I come back to and make into more elaborate paintings, those are going to be priced for gallery sale, if that makes sense. And then they're on my website under whatever it is I'm painting, portraits or landscapes. Now, I'm not really worried about the sky holes in these trees yet. I'll come back through and add more. But I don't want them to be sort of stealing the show at this point because it's supposed to be all really soft back here. Okay, I don't want to spend too much time on this either because I want to get to the swans and the water and all right. Oh, I want to tell you too about the video that I deleted from a couple weeks ago. I did film me finishing that painting. So even though it's gone, I do have the part 2 that I still have to upload. So if you had questions on that video, and I didn't get to them because, I deleted it, I will be posting the take 2 video probably soon. I just haven't finished editing it yet. All right, so I'm kind of blocking in where I want the rest of these values to go. Now as I come down here to the birds, and this is another area where I'm taking the artistic license to determine that we don't need 4 birds in the picture like they're pictured over there. I think it makes more sense just to have the 2. I like the idea and symbolism of just 2 birds anyway. So here we have the water coming down, and it sort of has a shift, a very subtle shift in the value in here. I might as well take this big one again. Just really soft and foggy, and I don't want to lose the integrity of my masses, and you can do that if you blend too much. So I'll just keep that really soft and subtle. This whole area in front of this bird over here is very, very light and soft and flat. It just seems really flat, which I like that because it makes it feel like glass, that she's just swimming into this glassy surface. Now, where the... Okay, sorry, I think I lost you for a second there. I don't know how long you were gone, but it happens. I'm just really glad we have power, actually. We had a really bad storm here in Ohio last few days. And so, yeah, we're still kicking. Okay, so cleaning up around this bird. And I want to be careful as I come around to this part of the bird back here because the underside of the form of this swan just blends right into the background. And I can just take that color and just soften right over that and lose edges as if he's just floating out of the fog. And I love that. You can tell stories while you're painting, and it helps, I think. So coming around to this side. We'll work on this passage here. It's a little darker in between both birds. Okay, now instead of getting all of this in down here, the value of it is okay, so I'm not going to work on that during this video, but I do want to work on the birds. So getting that brush. Let's see. What I did to get these sort of sculpted in place is I took a small stiff, this is a 2 brush, and I rubbed out the areas where I wanted that, and then I just took a little bit of white to give me that strongest impact in the paint. So I'm going to move you a little bit closer. And again, there's nothing you're really going to be missing on my palette, so it's just the different shades of whites and gray that I'll be working with. Okay. So a little bit of the ultramarine blue and burnt sienna into my white. Now, again, I'm just making a puddle down here of a middle tone gray to see where I'm going to be needing that on this painting. And that's too dark, but maybe, yeah, that's the color that I see it in the water. So I'll just take that brush where I see it over here too, right in the water. And I see it on the neck. Now I try to use horizontal brush strokes when I'm working on water. So that comes, I checked all these measurements earlier when I drew these. Kind of like painting facial features, you really, to work on something like these swans, you have to work on the water at the same time. Like when I say painting facial features, to say, oh, how do you paint a nose? Well, you got to work on the whole mouth area too. So. All right, so this is again a little bit of the white with the blue, and I'm seeing that really right in here. That's a great value for that. But as you can see too, I hope that you can see from this video that I do a lot of tests. How is this? How is that? Should I lighten it? Should I put a brush stroke down? If it's wrong, you can wipe it off. Try it again. And I'm using the biggest brush I feel comfortable with. This is a size 4 flat. And I like this one because I can kind of get in and do some broader strokes. I can always get a smaller, finer brush, but you can sort of sculpt out your forms better with a broader brush. And I always try to think of painting in terms of sculpting more than drawing, because that is a good way to get better form into your work. Get a nice flat chiseled edge. I do apologize how warm this painting looks in the video. Let's see if this helps. Not really. Come across here. Now thinking about the form of this bird in the front here, blocking in the body is, it just sits in the water. It's so pretty. And I think I know on purpose I made my birds a little bit more sloped than they are in the photo. In the photo, they're more horizontal, but I liked the feeling like this, that they're kind of more coming at us rather than going sideways. I think it lent a little bit more poetry to the painting. Too dark. There we go. Okay. All right. While I have some of these lighter colors on my brush, I might as well put in the water here where I see some of these lighter reflections. And that is the sky around the bird. And I'm connecting these two. It's important to find areas and passages of connection rather than disjointed passages. So how can I connect these two birds? Look for those areas. Soften edges from one bird to the next. Okay. Okay, and then coming over to this one. That one is much lighter too than this, the one that's behind it. So I'm going to make it a little bit more of blue and white into the form of this wing instead of more of the gray and white of that one. It's also in part because this bird of the white is picking up ambient light from this bird. It's bouncing light into this, the feathers here. White is a color in nature that picks up a lot of reflected light. So whatever it's bouncing back into it, it's going to show. Another reason I tell people when you're plein air painting, don't go out in your bright pink shirts. Bright colors, reds, whatever you're wearing is going to show up on your canvas, your white canvas. And it affects your judgment and your choices for painting. So just little things to watch out for. Grab a little bit of the yellow ochre into this too. I just love painting swans. They have such gorgeous form in their body, and the way that these elegant curves just shape around. If you have never painted a swan, I encourage you to try it sometime. They're just lovely animals. And these two are just such a beautiful pair too. I mean, look at that. I don't want to put a lot of distracting detail into these because it's not about a hyper detailed painting. It's about the connection here and these two and the serene moment. Imagine too if it was painted with hyper photo detail, it would kind of kill that overall misty flavor of the whole painting. So you want to watch out for things like that and have an idea of what it is that's important to you to say before you lay down a brushstroke. In this case, in this painting, I knew that I wanted to talk about the value in this mysterious fog and the relationship here. And so that helps you to sort out other details and other information and other distractions that will come into your thoughts. Oh, I could add this, or I could add that, or make the water a prettier color, or you have to keep in mind what it is that was important to you in the first place. Otherwise, it's easy to get distracted. So I'm got that bird kind of in place. I'm going to come through and work on the water around it. And it's a very subtle shift in the value, this gray. The only thing that really separates the top of her head and neck from the background is just a thin layer of white. Now, when we talked about edges the last few weeks, that when I mentioned, things up close, having sharper edges, this is a perfect example of that in keeping the edges here, and especially these accent passages under the birds where their bodies connect with the water, a nice, sharp, crisp little accent that will really bring these guys forward and push everything else back. And I love doing things like that just to really show distance. All right, so we've got them kind of blocked in pretty much. Now I'm going to connect them to the water and to each other. So, oops. There's a little bit of blue down here. I don't know if that's showing up in the video. A little bit like that. All right. Okay. And we'll work around the heads in the water. I love this reflection here where she's looking down in the water. It's almost like he's saying, "You look fine, dear." All right. Keep this a little darker over here. Oops, I got some phthalo green in there. I guess it's hard to see my palette, so never mind. Now I'm just taking a little bit of that alizarin crimson and blue. Just grade that down a little bit over here. A little bit of lavender in there. And what I want to do with this painting is I work on it on my own, I want to sort of make this a little bit more pearly, and I do apologize that you can't see the color accurately, but there's sort of this unique thing I like to do with the paint that's very impressionistic, where you layer color on top of color on top of color, and it has this really luminescent pearlizing effect that I want to play with in this. So I'll get there. And again, I will show you this when I'm done with all of that. All right, so a couple more accent passages. So just taking a really small brush, and I'm going to take some burnt sienna, a little bit of ultramarine blue. And with this, I have my little cane. I found this cane at an antique store, and I like it because I can hook it above whatever and just rest my hand on it. So I'm going to come through here and just put in some accents under the birds. And you want to be very careful because I mean, they're not hard to fix. You can just take it out if it's wrong, but just a really delicate. All right, let's get this guy. And there's less of those sharp accents in front, but I see more of them back here. Looks like his heel is kind of sticking out a little. But I don't want to draw the eye right down there, so we'll just keep that softer. Same thing with back here. I'll just pull that a little sharper. Okay, now I'm going to take some of that and just give them a little bit more definition in their face. I love how this one's angled. Just keep that nice and articulate. We'll come over here and do this one. And she's looking at herself. A little bit on her beak there. Now we've got the perfect reflection down in the water here. Okay. Now just maybe I'll take a little bit of the orange. So I'll take some cadmium red. I'll set this down. Let's just take it right over here. Cadmium red. And let's take some cad yellow medium. And I mix those two together. What are we at for their beaks? Is that close? That's close. All right, setting this down. Picking this back up. I don't want to call a whole lot of attention to their beaks or their faces, so I'm going to keep this pretty subtle, but just enough to indicate some color in this field of non-color. Maybe even a little bit of alizarin might help tone it down a little. Just getting that shape just right. As much as I love ravens, there can't be a more beautiful bird than a swan. I don't know, they're just so beautiful, elegant, graceful. I want this beak a little darker in the water. Just remember that whatever you're painting in the water, it's darker than what it's reflecting. And then I think I want to just come through with a nice sharp little flat chiseled brush. This is synthetic. And I want to pull out some water ripples. Let's get a little bit thinner paint. It's probably too bright. So there's some going back here, and I'm going to start with these because I can get these a little bit more that. There's the slightest suggestion way back here, so soften that. And pull out some more. When I finish this, this will have a lot more information. Not too much more. I don't want to flood it with too much detail, but just a little more to create the effect I'm looking for. on this smooth surface of the water, there are some droplet indication like it's starting to rain. So I'm going to play with some of that. More her beak is being reflected in the water. I'm just taking it and swishing some paint right into it. I'm about to wrap this up. So while I finish this, just take a minute to say, be sure to check out those links below. My workshop's starting to fill. Excited about that. I love seeing and meeting you all there. Really developed some wonderful friendships from people I've met at workshops. And also, it's not too late to get your to order one of these Valentine's bracelets that I came up with this year. And they're not just Valentine's, but they happen to be in time for Valentine's. My past, present, and future design. The 3 pearls. Those links are below. They will be when this video is uploaded. So yeah, I'm excited about that. And again, these paintings are always, I do try to put them up on my website. If I'm happy with them, sometimes I don't. People might look. But if you liked a certain video and you can't find that painting on my website, feel free to shoot me an email. I try to answer those emails, your emails or comments or questions in good time. All right. I think that's as far as I'm going to go today. And I'll pull out more detail when I finish, of course. And turn around. All right, so that pretty much wraps this up. And again, I want to thank you guys all so much for joining me. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe. I always appreciate that. And I'm going to get finishing this painting. So check out those links below, and I will see you next time. Bye, everybody.